Good morning, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin this morning in Colombia. In Cuba, where the Colombian government and the FARC rebel group leaders met on Tuesday, that's where they're attempting to restart the country's peace talks. The process was put on hold after General Rubén Darío Alzate was detained by the rebels. The meeting focused on how they would pick up where they left off with the negotiations. The meeting came to a deadlock. The rebels have insisted on a ceasefire they have proposed since the peace talks began in November 2012. The government has refused. Negotiators will meet again today.
In
Colombia, President Juan Manuel Santos warns military officials that he will not allow acts of defiance against the peace process. He also says he will withdraw any soldier from active service who threatens to undermine the negotiations. His announcement comes one day after General Rubén Darío Alzate resigned after being freed from FARC detention. The general was detained by the FARC under dubious circumstances when he and two colleagues were in a known conflict zone in civilian clothing without military guards. And in Mexico, a new law has been approved in the lower house on Tuesday that would in effect ban mass demonstrations in the country. Critics say the law gives the state the ability to repress free speech. The law comes at a time when protests have flooded the country demanding justice for the 43 missing Ayotzinapa students. The bill is titled the Universal Mobility Law and will allow police to stop or detain anyone that interferes with the universal right to mobility. Many of the protests in the country have blocked major roads and airports. Mexico's National Human Rights Commission announced Tuesday that it will open an investigation to determine if police committed abuses against protesters during the December 1st march in Mexico City. On Monday, thousands of people marched demanding the return of the 43 students from Ayotzinapa and the resignation of President Enrique Peña Nieto. After the march, a small group of masked protesters broke windows of some businesses and clashed with riot police who used tear gas. In Uruguay, newly elected President Tabaré Vázquez has said he will keep his predecessor's entire cabinet. Vázquez announced his decision only 48 hours after he was voted into office this past Sunday. Vázquez had served in office prior to the current president José Mujica and says that his previous experience made it easier to pick his team. The new president will officially take office in January. The third day of climate talks kick off in Peru today at the United Nations Climate Forum. Representatives from over 200 countries will discuss ways to reduce carbon world emissions and present a new deal at the Paris Treaty next year. Yesterday, leaders presented evidence showing strong links between human activity and climate change. They also highlighted major changes in the environment, which include the warming of the Earth's atmosphere and the oceans, diminished amounts of snow and ice, and rising sea levels. And now to Ferguson, Missouri in the United States, where angry protests were not easing on Tuesday. In response to calmer circumstances, Governor Jay Nixon announced a scale back of the National Guard in the St. Louis suburb. Protests in Ferguson peaked over the lack of an indictment in the police shooting of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown. Police said they were investigating suspects that could have incited to violence during the protests November 24th, when 12 buildings and various police cars were torched.
Contagiosos del virus.
And now to Washington, where President Barack Obama has urged Congress to approve $6 billion to help fight the Ebola outbreak. The money would be used both domestically as well as internationally. Obama reminded lawmakers that even though the story has faded from the headlines, the battle against the virus is far from over. Nearly 6,000 people have died and 17,000 have been infected by the deadly virus since the outbreak began in March. Also in Washington, President Obama has settled on Ashton Carter as his fourth defense secretary. If he is fully vetted, Carter would replace Chuck Hagel. Like his predecessors, Robert Gates and Leon Panetta, Hagel complained about White House micromanaging of the Pentagon. The next defense chief will join a national security team facing crisis on multiple fronts, from the U.S.-led fight against Islamic State in Iraq and Syria to Russia's alleged aggression in Ukraine, global efforts to contain Iran's influence, and an increasingly assertive China.
Thank you. How you doing? Good. How are you doing? Good.
In Brussels, NATO has approved a new quick reaction military force comprised of 4,000 soldiers to be deployed in the Baltic republics along the Russian border. Russia immediately replied to NATO plans, saying it will take countermeasures to respond to NATO expansion in Eastern Europe. NATO's decision comes in violation of a 1997 agreement. That accord guaranteed to Russia that no Western forces would be deployed near its border. Moscow accused the Western military bloc of unnecessarily increasing tensions. Israeli legislators today agreed to set March 17th as the date for a new parliamentary election. The parliament is due to vote later today on dissolving itself. It comes after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fired two centrist cabinet members and declared an early election. His government has been unraveling over various issues, including a Jewish nation-state bill that many say discriminates against Arab citizens. Polls reveal that Netanyahu's party would emerge again as the largest group in parliament if elections were held today. That almost certainly ensures him a fourth term in office. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great day.